guys, in here. So this video we're gonna take a look of this. First of all, I have to open this box. Let's take a look what's inside. Ooh. I assume that you guys already know what is this. Let's open this one here. Is that keyboard? Yeah, this is keyboard. Powered up AC mouse from Alienware. Here's the dock. Okay, so this is the big guy here today. And yes, this is the Alienware, the new Aurora. I've been using this Alienware Aurora R7 gaming PC for more than a week now, and I did play game on it, and I did video editing on it, and I've done some benchmarks on this one. So I will let you guys know some of my own experience with this gaming PC here. But before I do that, I want to let you guys know the monitor here I use is the Asus 32-inch IPS panel monitor, and the resolution is 1440p and runs at 60 Hz. So any sort of performance test or benchmarks is gonna be under 1440p resolutions. And I think this one actually does a great job under 1440p resolution. So this new Alienware Aurora R7 is basically exactly the same looking or same design as the 2016 and 2017 models. It still had the same size tower with those 3 strip LED lights. And of course the power button is LED backlight as well. And you can change the color of the LED lights in the Alienware's own tuning software, what they call the command center. There's air vent on the top and front and side of the case. The front vent is just acting as an intake, and the top vent is exhaust, pushes the hot air out of the case. And on the top, we also see that handle design. If you're going to move this case around, help you more easily to do so. And also we have exactly the same I/O on the top front of the case. There's 3 USB ports and 1 Type-C and a microphone and audio jack. It says new Aurora R7, then you're gonna ask, what's new then? It's new is because it's 2018, of course, and it has the 2018 version of this. Basically, it just upgraded the motherboard chipset to the new Intel Z370, and of course the CPU is now the 8th gen i7 8700 CPU. Well, this CPU here is not 8700K. The K version is just basically an unlocked version of the 8700. This i7 8700 in there, it runs at base speed of 3.2 GHz, and what they said is they overclocked at the factory. So with turbo boost, you can go up to 4.6 GHz. The 16 GB of DDR4 RAM dual channel runs at 2666 MHz, and with the NVIDIA GTX 1060 of 6 GB of DDR5 VRAMs. And for storage, this one only has a 1 TB hard drive. It is a physical hard drive, it's not SSD. But good thing is it is equipped with a 16 GB of Intel Optane module with the hard drive. So it's gonna help you to achieve SSD-like performance on a physical hard drive. What's the Intel Optane? So if you don't know what Intel Optane is, just think this way. A SSD acting like a memory card. It caches data or preloaded data into the Optane module. So when you open the app first time, it will keep the data on the Optane module, and the data will be not lost due to loss of power. When the next time you try to open that up again, it will be load much faster because all of those data are preloaded on the Optane module. Gives you faster launch time and faster performance to run the application and to run in the system. The most noticeable improvement with the Intel Optane module is basically the system boot time. Most of people, I think, who are not crazy with picking on system performance, this could be a alternative option, like cheaper option to go. After all, a 1 TB physical hard drive plus a 16 GB of Intel module, and the price is just about 1/3 or maybe it's just half the price of the 1 TB SSD. So what's the performance on the hard drive plus Optane on this one then? From the benchmark test, it does show SSD-like performance in most of the time, and the boot time is just as fast as a SSD. So I tested the boot time when I did not install any sort of application on the system except all the software that come with it. it. So the boot time is around 12 seconds. After I install some other different softwares, the boot time is stable at 18 seconds to 20 seconds. The NVIDIA GTX 1060 in there, it has 60GB of DDR5 RAM. The current NVIDIA Pascal platforms has as much of a 3 times faster speed performance over than the previous generation of NVIDIA GPUs. And especially if you're running VR, but unfortunately I don't have a VR headset at my home, so I cannot show you what the VR play looks like on this gaming PC. But I did run a VR benchmark test, and from the result it's pretty promising and shows it can run VR quite nicely. It is powered by a 460 watt power supply, and the power supply location is actually pretty cool. And to see the power supply and the internal components, you just need to unscrew the black handle, and then you pull the black handle on the back of the case. The side panel will loose. Then you pop up the side panel, then you see everything inside. To open up the power supply unit here, because this one has a unique design, what they call the toolless design. So basically you're just gonna unlock the mechanism, then you can swing up the power supply and to open up the whole case. The interior of the case is maybe not as exciting as some of other custom built PC, but for people who like to buy OEM, they probably don't care about that much. But when you see the inside interior of this case, there's not that much of space being wasted, especially due to this design. I think this design is quite nice, and there's also a extra space for the hard drive and DRAMs and some other components as well. So just for you to, if you want to upgrade this PC in the future, you can easily do so. If you want just to upgrade the RAM on this system here, it can be upgraded to a maximum of 64GB. The I/O at the back, it has 6 USB 2 ports and 1 super speed rated of 10GB per second USB 3.1 port, and 1 super speed rated 10GB per second Type C, that's USB 3.1, and another 3 USB 3 ports, and among with display ports and other audio ports. And this PC does do a very good job on editing and rendering 1080p videos, and can be also editing 4K videos on this PC smoothly as well. And the 4K rendering time is also fast. And the results from the Cinebench are pretty good too. The OpenGL test has over 110 frames per second, and the CPU performs over 1200 scores. Okay, there's one thing I really don't like for this PC, but easy to fix, is the fan. Okay, the fan comes with right in the box. It's actually quite loud, actually super loud. Alright, the reason why I found out is because I think the default setting for the fan speed is based on the performance of the CPU, and that's very annoying because maybe there's 1 second that the CPU runs at 100% and just suddenly it blows up to 100%, and then the CPU comes back to like 1 to maybe 5%, 10%, and the fan speed drops to 5 or 10%. It's okay when the whole system is on idle, but when it's actually performing any sort of thing like video editing or sometimes play games, it can be very frustrating. When it's on idle, the sound level is only around like 40 decibels, so that's actually okay. But when it goes up, it can be like super crazy. It just blows up to 70, almost 70 decibels of sound level. That's actually, I would say, very, very loud. If you place this gaming PC at a quiet area, or even for a pretty mid-sized or large office, the whole office is gonna hear that noise. The reason I said it's pretty easy to fix is just because there's a tons of third-party fans. A lot of another manufacturer, they do make really good fan that much less noise. It's like a quiet fans, so you can just buy those fans and replace the original one. And of course, change the settings based on the temperature, not based on the performance of the CPU. Okay, now let's talk about gaming on this PC. In GTA 5, and mostly very high settings, it shows average of 60 frames per second, and I played about 1 to 2 hours. The frame per second was never dropped, and average of 60 frames per second, I say it is very playable for most people. If you're not really into that, like over 100 frames per second or crazy about frame per second, and I'd say 60 frames per second average, it is very playable, and you can play that game smoothly all the time, no problem. And in Battlefield 4 on the ultra settings, of course 1440p resolution, the average FPS is sure over 60 frames per second, and with lowest about around like 50 frames per second, and highest is over 100 frames per second. In the Battlefield 1 on the ultra setting, of course 1440p as well, the frame per second mostly stays at 50 to 60 frames per second and averaged about 55 frames per second. The lowest FPS I see is about around like 40 plus FPS. In Crysis 3 on the very high settings, it averaged about, I'd say, 45 frames per second. And in some cases, for example, in the very beginning part when the game starts, shows frame per second at 30 to 30 plus FPS. And in some part, it can also go over to 50 to 60 frames per second, but still not bad. very playable. In Mass Effect Andromeda, at ultra settings, it averaged at 38 frames per second. Mostly it runs between 30 to 50 frames per second. Not bad too. And the benchmark test result from both Heaven and Velia shows pretty good as well. They both running at average of about 60 frames per second. And in 3D Mark benchmarks, the result wasn't so good. It's sort of like lower than what I thought, actually. It only got almost 3,000 points, which is at 2,941 points on the Fire Strike Ultra, and averaged about only 10 frames per second and maximum of 15 frames per second. On the physics test, better is at the 59 frames per second. In the normal version of Fire Strike, the score is much better though. It's still just 10,744 points and it's average about 46 to 60 frames per second, and the combined test is average at 20 frames per second. This score is just about to hit the level of a gaming PC. In Time Spy, with almost a 4,000 point at 3,989 points, average of 21 frames per second, the result is not very pleasing though. And for benchmark result on the superposition, it showed a very good performance in 1080p and quite nice, I would say playable on 4K UHD resolution as well. Okay, now for the price. I purchased this gaming PC from Best Buy at a $14.99 plus taxes price when it was on sale. Of course, now it's back to its original price at $19.99. It's almost $2,000. I saw this one on sale at Best Buy just after I get rid of my old system. So I see the price of $14.99, then I make sure the specs of this system here. I did some research, I even make a list of components that if I'm going to build exactly same spec system as this one to see what's the price I'm going to be with. Actually, it turns out this is still the best value option that I can get. Then I decided I have to get this one just because this one has such good deal. So you may gonna ask, what's the list or components that I'm comparing with? Basically, I'm just searching on Amazon to find the most popular parts on Amazon and possibly the cheapest parts I can find to build exactly the same spec system. The case is Cooler Master MCB Q300P. It's the micro ATX case because this one also has a micro ATX motherboard, so I'm just looking for micro ATX case. Price was Canadian at $84.99, and the Asus Z370G micro ATX motherboard at $239.99. Of course, 8th Gen Core i7 8700 CPU, $400 and $8.88. The Corsair Vengeance LPX 16GB of DDR4 RAM, same speed, $212.90 Canadian. Asus the GTX 1060 6GB of DDR5 RAM, $379.99. The Western Digital 1TB hard drive, $54.97. The Intel Optane 16GB version is $52.31. The EVG 500 watts 80 plus watt power supply is $56. And also the LG Slim DVD optical drive of $38.70. It's just because this one has optical drive as well, so you know. And of course, I'm looking for extra fan. That's gonna be cost me around another $30. So combine everything together that have been said, the total will becomes to $1,558.82 and plus taxes. So this price is already more expensive, well, not that much, but it's more than $14.99, which is $1,500, about like $60 more. And of course, if you want to build a similar price systems on NZXT's new BLD services on their website, I even get a lower spec system. Well, some people you might say, if you're gonna buy all the components by yourself and build a system by yourself, you're gonna have a much nicer components compared to the OEM one. Well, yeah, it's true, but for people who are just like into a one-stop shop and it's being pre-installed everything at the factory and saves you time and also maybe saves you some little bit of cost, or if you don't really care that much about custom built PCs, probably don't care about how much nicer this looks like inside, right? As long as the case looks good, they're okay with it. I'm okay with it. Okay, for conclusion, so I think this new Alienware Aurora R7 has, I think, the best OEM design. The mid-size tower is actually very compact and actually pretty small. I think it's the smallest mid-size tower that I've ever seen for a pre-built system, even for a custom built system as well. The LED light design on the case looks very simple and looks very cool, and I like it very much actually. Every time when it just lights up, it always looks amazing, and you can tell right away that is an Alienware desktop PC. PC. And for its specs, I think this one has pretty much the best value option for the Alienware Aurora, possibly even for the custom builds as well, because at $14.99 price, like I said, I built a listed before, it is a bit cheaper than what you can build by yourself. And for sure it's gonna be cheaper if you're gonna configure that exactly same spec online, order strictly from DELL Alienware. This price is still being cheaper and better specs than the online version. And for people who are not really into custom build PCs, and this thing comes with everything pre-built, pre-installed, with warranty, one-stop shop. It's gonna save you a bit of time and the cost. The fine noise on this PC though, it might be an issue, but I don't see it's that much of a big problem because you can just simply buy quiet fans and then replace the ones that in this case. And 8th Gen i7 8700 CPUs, a 16GB DDR4 RAMs, NVIDIA GTX 1060, and Intel Optane module 1TB hard drive, and also killer Ethernet, killer Wi-Fi cards in there, better internet connections and speed, the LED lighting that you can change color, everything you needed for a very good performance in both gaming and video editing is all in one here. And the price of $14.99, why not this one? I mean, this is the best value option that you can get. And of course, if you want to upgrade any sort of components inside this case, you can still keep to use this case, and it's very upgrade friendly. So everything in this case is upgradable in the future. There's more space for power supplies, which means you can put a bigger power supplies if you want to. Or even though if you just want to replace graphic cards on the current motherboard here, it has a 2 graphic cards PCIe slot, so you can make Crossfire or SLI setups on this system. With a toolless design, you just have a lot of potential in this one here. Alright, I hope you guys like this video. If you do like it, please hit that like button. If you don't, the button's still there. Subscribe if you haven't done so, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers guys.